makers, Lisa here from Andrew Designs. I've just finished filming the comprehensive video class for the Layla Essentials purse, and I just thought I'd take a snippet out of that and create this free little tutorial to show you how I like to measure, mark and fold the card slots for both this purse and for our Clio Everyday Wallet. So in this pattern specifically, there is quite a few card slots panels. So throughout the tutorial, I'm going to show you how to measure them out, to mark them on the back of your fabric, and how to fold them at the pressing table, and then also how to stitch them to assemble them up so they're the right size, they're equal, they're parallel, and they look beautiful. So let's get started. To prepare your 4 card slots panels, we're going to take our left card slots outer panel first. So looking at your 4 card slots panel strips that you've prepared with your interfacing on the back, we're going to take one of our long ones. Now if you have fussy cut fabric that is specifically for the left hand side of your Layla, you'll want to take that fabric. However, as you can see, I've used the same fabric for all of my card slots. So I'm going to take one of the long ones and I'm just going to pop the rest of them out to the side for now. So taking one of your card slots panels, we're going to place it right side down on our work surface, and we're going to draw fold lines across it, working from the top edge down. Because I'm left-handed, I like to work from right to left. However, if you are right-handed, you'll probably find it easier to measure and mark from left to right. I like to measure and mark card slot panels using my cutting mat. I just find it helps to get the lines nice and square with the fabric and with each other, and it helps to ensure that they are correctly spaced so that you don't accumulate spacing as you go depending on the thickness of your tailor's chalk or your pencil. So I'm going to line up this card slots panel with the lines on my cutting mat like that, and as I said, I'm working from right to left. So this is the top, and I've just marked it with a T just because my fabric, it is directional, but it's not directional. So just to make sure, I have marked all the top edges of my pieces with a T for top, so I know where they're at for when I come to use them. Taking tailor's chalk and a ruler, we're going to measure, the first line is going to be 4 inches down from this top short edge. So I'm actually going to use the lines on my cutting mat rather than the lines on my ruler, even though technically they should be the same. And I'm going to just place it straight across the fabric, and I'm just going to draw a line across the interfacing. So from there, we're going to measure a further 3 inches on from that. And again, I'm going to use the lines on my cutting mat rather than the line I've just drawn. And as you might be able to see through the video there, my pencil line is actually slightly off to the line on my ruler. That'll be because of the thickness of the lead, and I don't know, maybe the ruler and the mat are slightly out from each other. So to keep everything consistent, I'm using the lines on my cutting mat for every line that I'm going to mark. So this one is at 3 inches, nice and square. The next one is going to be 3.5, so 1, 2, 3.5 to there. And I'm using the dots on my cutting mat and making sure it's all nice and square with the other lines as well. And I'm going to mark that. And then we're going to go 3 inches from there. So 1, 2, 3. We'll take it to here and square that one up and mark it. And then we're going to do another 3.5. Just to there. And finally a 3 inch to finish off this panel. Just like that. So you should have a total of 6 lines at 4 inches, 3 inches, 3.5 inches, 3 inches, and 3.5 inches, and 3 inches along. And that will give you all your fold lines for your first card slots panel. So from here, come with me, we're going to head over to our pressing station and we're going to fold and press our card slots to get it ready for stitching. So at your pressing table, you're going to take the first card slot panel that you've just marked out. And what we're going to do is make sure it's orientated correctly with the top at the top of our pressing table. And we're going to have it right side up so that we're looking at the right side of our fabric. From there, all we're going to do simply is fold the bottom of the panel all the way up so that we are creating a fold at the first line we drew on the wrong side of the fabric. So to do that, we're just going to fold it so the fabric is right sides together. The rest can just sort of go off the edge of your pressing table if need be. Make sure the sides are nicely aligned with both raw edges. We're going to crease it at that first line we drew to create a nice fold, and then we're going to give it a good press with the iron to set that seam. From here, we're going to fold all of the rest of the panel back down towards us at that second line we drew. So the easiest way I've found to do this is actually to use my thumbnails and to pinch it on each side and kind of push into the pressing mat at the sides of that line, and then flip the rest over, and that will help create a crease. So just like that, I'm keeping my fingers there, and I'm just going to push the rest of the fabric down. And then before I press it, I'm going to make sure that the sides of my fabric are nicely aligned with the raw edges, so it's folding nice and square. I'm just going to give it a finger press, and then I'm actually going to open it back up to check that the fold is on that line we've drawn. So I can actually see that my fold is slightly off. I need to come further down. So I'm going to refold it, pull my fabric down ever so slightly, which will create the fold further up the fabric. Give it another finger press, flip it back to check, and there I've got a nice crease on that pencil line. So I'm going to refold, make sure everything is square, and give it a good press to set that seam. So from here, it's literally just a matter of repeating that process, making sure that as we go, our fabric stays nice and parallel and the raw edges stay level with each other, to make sure it's all nicely aligned as we go down. So for the next fold, I'm going to flip the remainder of the fabric up to that next line that we've drawn, fold it at that line, make sure everything else stays nice and square with each other, and I'm going to give it a press. And then I'm going to flip it back down at the next line, again just using my thumbs and fingers to kind of pinch it, flip the fabric over, square it up, finger press, check first, that's nicely on the line this time, refold and press. And then we'll repeat that process for the last two lines of this panel. So once you've created each fold and each card slot for this first panel, you're going to pause the video, you're going to head over to your machine, and you're going to top stitch along each of these 3 card slots areas using a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and a top stitch length of about 3 to 3.5 millimeters. Make sure as you stitch each one that you let the rest of the fabric fold out of the way so that you're only stitching the top of each fold. And once you've done that, pop back here and we will continue. So once you've top stitched each of your card slot areas, it should be looking something like this. And if you refold it back to how we had it originally, it should measure approximately 7 to 7¼ inches from the top to the bottom, assuming you've used quilting cotton as stated in the pattern directions. So from here, we're just going to make sure it's nicely refolded, and we're going to baste the sides together to hold it all in place. What I like to do, again, using the lines on my cutting mat, is make sure everything is nice and square, and that the top edges of the card slots, which is what the eye is naturally drawn to, especially once the purse is finished, I like to make sure those are nice and level as well, so there's no sort of wonkiness going on and it all kind of lines up with each other. So I've got the top edge and the right hand side of my fabric square with my cutting mat. I'm just looking at the top fold and it looks pretty good. I'm just going to pull it slightly to the left so that it's level. And then I'm going to pop a pin in both sides just through the seam allowance area, just to hold that top card slot in place. And then I'm going to again line up the next card slot, and that one looks pretty good. I'm just going to pull it to the left a bit. That looks pretty good, so I'm going to pin those as well through the seam allowance area. And also for the last card slot, make sure that's nice and level and the rest of the fabric is nice and square. And I'm going to pin those as well, just to hold them in place prior to basting at the machine. Just like that. So once you have your card slot panel pinned together, or you could use clips if you like, pause the video, head over to your machine. You're going to baste down each side just from just above the top of the card slots to just below that bottom fold. You're going to use a 1/4 inch allowance, and a longer stitch length of sort of 4 to 5 millimeters will be fine. It's just to hold the folds in place prior to assembling the rest of the card slots panel. So once you've basted those sides in place, pop back here and we will continue. So once you've basted down each side of your card slots panel, it should be looking something like this. It's nicely prepared, and it's time to repeat that same process for your 3 remaining card slots panels. So once you've created your 3 remaining card slots panels, you should have 4 beautiful card slot panels looking just like this. So this is the left one we created earlier. Here's my 2 center ones, and this is my right hand one, which has only 2 card slots and space for the ID panel. And that's all there is to it. You now have beautiful card slots ready to keep assembling for the purse or wallet pattern that you might be making. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and I hope you've learned a few little tips and tricks as well. As always, if you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to contact us via the contact page of our website, and I'll pop a link to both our website and the Layla Essentials purse and the Cleo Everyday Wallet patterns in the description below. Until next time, happy sewing!